Awesome. Hey Sasha, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. So I watched Chris Twisters last night. Amazing movement. So I just wanted to get started with um since it is a sequel, so like were you a fan of the original or was that something you discovered after you were cast?
Well, it's not a sequel. I think it's its own standalone film,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
easy confusion. I grew up on Twister. I love Twister. As a kid, I used to watch it all the time. I grew up in Texas, obviously, so tornadoes were a really big thing here. So to now be a part of something decades later that was so iconic back in the day, but also to realize like we have so much different technology, we have a lot more resources now. The climate's so much different. And to kind of just be a part of that world and to bring the new generation something as special as what we had back in the day, I think it's so fun. It's amazing. I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as you mentioned, you did grow up in Texas where you were probably familiar with tornadoes going into this movie. So when you're doing the weather boot camp at the start of the film, what did you pick up from that you weren't previously sort of aware of?
I think the main thing, just like the origin of the alarms, I just didn't recognize that they once debated even having them, like the sirens going off, debated even having them because they thought it would send people into too much of a panic. And until they decided, like, wait, no, this actually could be very beneficial. Sounds crazy, but also I didn't really process the storm chasers reasoning, I guess. I just never thought about it. I just always thought like, oh, I'm in awe of nature too, and they're probably just like adrenaline junkies, which a lot of people think that. But really, there's that aspect, but it's also the fact of they are the ones essentially feeding the information back to the weather channels and the people who are collecting the data that they can see visually, but there's still nothing that beats like physically being somewhere and being able to tell you kind of firsthand what's happening and what to expect. And so they are really actually just essentially risking their lives to help save so many people on top of us having other technology. And so I think that's just something that I definitely took away from that experience and from filming to talking to a bunch of storm chasers, that it's just kind of you always got to respect the people who are doing things that you don't even consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like this is such a big production, and you don't often see these sort of productions shot on location as much today, especially. So what was your experience just like working on location, being actually in sort of the thick of the turn? I think you guys even experienced a sort of a tornado during
Mm-hmm.
filming. So what was that experience shooting on location and seeing sort of like the real-time reactions?
I love it. It's kind of how I got into this industry. That was the norm for me.
Mm.
So anything that has to do with too much studio work and too much imagination, I think is not as ideal for me, and it's harder for me to kind of feel connected to. So I think it's really great that we were able to do so much on location, and to it just makes the acting experience when you're dealing with like, hey, the winds are hitting you, or it's starting to get really hot or really crazy, or it just makes it just so much easier and such a smoother transition into how you're processing what's happening around you.
Yeah. And when you're as Lily is the drone operator of the team, so were you able to work with the drones themselves? Like, are you working with them? How much did you kind of like sort of grasp what these people are doing and versus what sort of like the behind the scenes work as well?
Yeah, I got to I'm God, I need to check this after, but I think his name is Alex, the one who was actually operating my drone in real time. Um, I really got to have some good talks with him. I did a lot of like YouTube research, and I got to kind of they let me try to operate it myself a few times and lift it myself, but that thing is heavy and it's huge. So I think they were politely telling me that I look ridiculous So essentially, we kind of handed it off to like Katie and everyone else. But we did that, and then I remember when we went to the weather center and we're learning about tornadoes and learning about all the technology and stuff that they have now. There was a guy there that essentially had created his own versions of just the things that you send off into the tornado to collect the data, and it's just really wild to think that there's just people who do that and are
Mm.
thinking and processing and trying to learn and reinvent as much as possible to essentially save us. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean it's such a de highly detailed movie, and then
yeah,
you also have this really amazing stunt near the end of the movie, in the movie theater. So what was it kind of like filming that with Glenn, being on, I'm assuming, a harness or something that as you're just being sort of dragged away, and then I mean I'm sure it's physically intensive kind of stunt. So if you could break that down.
it was fun. I
Yeah.
mean, I honestly had fun. I mean, it was a bit uncomfortable. You have a harness and a bunch of things pulling at you everywhere, but I love a little drama. So yeah, it was great as long as I remembered to actually physically grab onto Glenn, or else I actually went flying up and they had to catch me. So I had to make sure I was like present.
Mm.
Um, but other than that, no, it was fun and it just made it feel real, I guess, that you are flailing around and they are throwing the wind and everything. So yeah, I had a great time during that.
That's awesome. No, that's such a fun, and the whole like last 30 minutes is just so awesome. And then so you were talking, and then what was your sort of experience working with Lee, who's directing the feature? And because I read somewhere that you described it as sort of like a sort of very collaborative approach where you were able to offer your input into your character into sort of the scene. So what was that kind of experience just working with him?
I think he just had such a laid back energy to him, but like the gears, you can see them spinning. He really is processing and he knows what he wants while also just being super open to everyone. He's understood that like if I want this to look authentic, especially with the tornado wranglers and us just kind of hanging around a lot, then you kind of have to be a little hands off and let everyone essentially do their thing. But I like that he told us, even when it came down to us making fun of Storm Parr, he's like, listen, do your thing, but we're not mean. You guys aren't bullies. And it's like, all right, all right, all right. So we got to hone it in a little bit. He just kind of gave us a set tone, I guess. And it's really nice when you don't have to think necessarily about like your twang coming out, or sometimes when I talk, like it just gets really country and it's really embarrassing. But it helped me feel more natural, I guess,
Mm.
that I didn't have to then cap and be like, wait, what would a New Yorker say? Or how would a person who talks more eloquently speak in this scene right now? And so that just felt really nice and freeing.
Awesome, and I don't want to keep you too long. So the sequel, I mean, the film does leave kind of the door open for a sequel to maybe happen down the line. Where would you want to maybe tackle that follow up? Where would you want to see Lily go next, with her team?
I don't know. We always make jokes about it. It's like Twisters in space, Twisters underwater, Twisters in New York. Like, what are we doing? I don't know. I'm very curious. I have no idea. Just maybe some more action from Lily. It'd be
Mm.
really cool to see a lot more like drone work actually.
Yeah, no, that stuff is really cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sasha. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Congrats on the film. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Connor.